Hello and welcome to Pastries for Pets Dog Treat Decorating channel. Today I'm going to show you how to frost a dog cupcake using frosting from www.pastriesforpets.com.
Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you about getting the right consistency from Royal Blend frosting from Pastries for Pets. The first thing you want to do when you open the bag of frosting mix is realize that it is just a powder. And on the instruction part of it, you could see it says a cupcake swirl, which is what I'm going to demonstrate today. It's 1 cup of dry mix, and then you add 3 tablespoons water. So what I'm going to do is take a cup of the dry mix and pour it in a measuring cup. And we'll do a cup of it. And I'm pouring it just directly out of the bag. So you have a level measuring cup of the mix. I'm going to pour it in my little mixing bowl. And I'm going to put the bag aside. So on the bag, there are instructions, and I'm going to go over them because a lot of people get a little bit confused when it comes to consistency, because there really is no wrong or right answer about consistency. So on the bag itself, and I'll explain that in a minute, but on the bag itself, it says to add 3 tablespoons water to 1 cup of dry mix. And what I always tell people is to take room temperature water, which I have right here. You have your measuring spoon, and this is 1 tablespoon measuring spoon. So I'm just going to add 3 tablespoons. Okay. And then the instructions say to mix with a hand mixer on low. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I have my hand mixer right here. I'm going to pick up the bowl so that we're not so shaky. Here we go. So very carefully, I'm going to put my hand mixer on low. And I'm going to actually just do this and let the frosting form by itself. And as you can see, it starts to take shape. And you're going to continue doing this until there's no dry mix left. You'll see it in a second. Trying to get it off the beaters. It is a very thick mixture. Now this is really thick, okay? Now most people don't use it this thick, which is fine, because if you look at it, when it's this thick, it's going to be very hard to push through and make cupcake swirls without really hurting your hand. Now the reason why the instructions say to do it this thick is because we want to have room for error, okay? So if you don't want your frosting this thick, it's easy to fix it at this point. What you do is you take a teaspoon. Actually, I'm gonna use half a teaspoon, okay? So on the directions with the packaging, it says to create thinner or thicker frosting, add more or less drops of water, okay? So this is exactly what I mean by that. Right now, this is a very thick consistency, which some bakers will use. But say you have carpal tunnel, or your hands really hurt, or you're using a smaller tip instead of doing a cupcake swirl, but you still want a thicker enough consistency. You can add a little more water. And if you had it too thin, you can add more mix. But what I'm trying to do is have it so that you add more water so that you're not necessarily using all of your frosting mix, okay? So that's why it looks a little bit thicker in the bowl, because then you can go over here and take a half a teaspoon of water, drop it in, and then we're gonna run the hand mixer again, okay? And as you can see, the consistency of the frosting is now changing to a much creamier consistency, okay? Now, this is actually a nice consistency to do a cupcake swirl. Let me just see if I can get it off my beaters, okay? Try not to make a big mess for you. Okay, so this consistency is getting more usable, okay? It's a good thick consistency, okay? And now, that's really good, but I'm gonna show you what happens when I add just a half a teaspoon more water, okay? You can always scrape it off on the sides. Okay. So, what I'm gonna do is add just a half teaspoon, remember? Very, very little bit of water. And that's what we mean by adding just a little bit of water. It goes a long way. And everyone's different, so this consistency is actually good. I would probably just use it like this, but it is hard on your hands to squeeze out of the mixing bag. So let's make it just a little bit thinner to make it a little bit nicer to work with. But you also still want to make sure that it's going to hold a shape like a cupcake swirl or a flower. So that's why we don't want it too thin, because too thin and you won't be able to have that nice shape hold for you. So it really is just a matter of getting used to what you like. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it from here. And you know, if it's too thick at this point, I can still empty it out of my bag, right? Put it back in the bowl and add some more water. But this actually is a nice consistency. I know by looking at it that it'll hold a cupcake shape. So let me scoop this into, I already pre-did a decorating bag for you. So I'll stick that in there. And I'm doing white. If you wanted to add food coloring, you can add food coloring. If it's a powdered food coloring, most people add the powder food coloring to the mix before they add the water. And if it's a gel food coloring, you can mix it in after you initially put your first amounts of water in it and make it a frosting. And then you can add more to make it a more vibrant color and adjust it like that, okay? So there's that. And all I'm doing is just putting it in a mixing bag, in a decorating bag. I'll show you that in a second. I use a cup because it's just so that it holds it for me, okay? So now I'm gonna take this out. And I already have the decorating tip at the bottom. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of gently squeeze the frosting down. And then I'm going to twist the top of the bag, obviously. Okay. And now I usually test my frosting. Let me see if I have a paper towel. I do. Okay. So you just want to really, get it to the top before you start decorating. Now everyone's different with decorating. Okay. This is just a quick little cupcake demonstration. But as you can see, the frosting is not hard for me to do. And it holds its shape very nicely, doesn't it? So now I have, a frosted cupcake. I'm a little bit crooked, but that's because I'm doing it live. If you wanted to add sprinkles or a dog treat like I just did, you want to do it while the frosting is wet. This way, as the frosting dries, your sprinkles and dog treat bone will stick to it and you'll have a perfect little cupcake, right? Oops, those are falling off the side. Hang on a second. You can always pick it up Do it this way too. Just tap them on there real quick with your fingers. Okay. Voila. And that's how you work with frosting.